People of Reddit, what's the worst financial decision you have seen? I knew someone who got a loan for their wedding, but decided to blow it all at a casino. Now they have a loan for $20,000 to pay off and nothing to show for it. A coworker I used to have worked every second of overtime he could for several years to save up for a house. When he applied for the house loan, he based his mortgage payment on all of the overtime he had been working. I tried to tell him that wasn't a good idea, but he didn't want to hear it. He ended up divorced a few years later because his wife got tired of him always working. My coworker recently imported a Nissan Skyline R34. This guy has the most frugal lifestyle you could imagine. Eating pasta/noodles or cheese sandwiches every lunch. When I asked him why spend almost $35,000 on that 25-year-old Nissan, he responded with, "That's my dream, no one can put price tag on that." Seen him coming to the office daily with it. Yeah, it has the Fast and Furious vibe to it, but still can't understand that decision. A guy who lived on my floor in the dorms inherited $100,000 from his grandfather's estate. He was suddenly very popular, buying all the beer, pizza, new car, golf clubs, etc. He was living large. His parents showed up about a month later to attempt to help straighten him out and recover funds. The golf clubs and other items went to a pawn shop, and they even enlisted the RA to help watch out for the guy. Terrible for an 18-19-year-old to come into that kind of money out of nowhere with no reference, or respect, for how to handle it or how it was earned. A dude who owned a small convenience store in our town spent like $20,000 on fidget spinners. He was posting for like a year begging people to buy them as he would lose his business and his marriage was falling apart due to it. My supervisor took out a loan against their 401k to pay their rent because their credit cards were maxed. 2 weeks later, they bought a brand new $60K Lincoln with basically nothing down because her daughter just had a baby and I need a bigger car for that. My coworker has $25K in anime figurines. He is in mega debt right now, worked with a 50-year-old guy who looked like the arse end of a rhino and hated anyone not from England. The guy sent £10,000 to his girlfriend in Thailand he'd never met for a boob job, clothes, and flight over, oddly enough her naked pics and promises of letting him hit from the back door when she visited him stopped once the money had been sent. Apply for a $5K loan, didn't accept quick enough so applied for another $5K loan, both got accepted and ended up gambling it all. My brother's ex fell for a Craigslist scam. She found a motorcycle and the guy needed money up front to pay bills before she even saw it. We told her don't do it, it's a scam. She said she already sent $1,000. Of course, he was never available to show her the bike, and we found out from my brother after they broke up she actually continued sending him money in hopes of getting the motorcycle. I think she was out $3,000 by the end. A guy I dated for a short time had been joining a MLM scheme selling insurances. I listened to his monologue and told him I had no money. He was furious and tried to sell insurance to our waiter at the restaurant. He failed again. I'm still laughing today, he was no good guy. Knew someone who answered those scam emails thinking they would get rich. Last I heard, he lost around $50,000. Emptied out savings account and maxed out credit cards. Left in debt and had to move back with ailing parents. My cousin spent 100% of her inheritance and took out a lien on her home to buy a second home in the mountains. Thing is, it was being pushed over by a mountain, and they thought they could fix it. I went and seen it, and every door jamb was crooked and the doors wouldn't shut. They took me down into the basement and they were trying to use I-beams to stop the mountain from pushing on the home. I was just like, what the hell are you doing, that won't solve anything. Fast forward 6 months and they asked me for $50K to help and I declined. Fast forward a year and the home collapsed and now they owe over $300K for a home that doesn't exist, and if they don't make the payments they lose their other house too because they used the original home as collateral and could not get insurance on the second home. Total money lost upwards of $700K. My brother and his wife were in massive debt, didn't work high-paying jobs and could no longer afford their 2-bedroom apartment while trying to pay off the debt. They moved back home, into our parents' basement. A week before they moved in, they built a computer, and a year after that, they consciously decided to try to get pregnant, which they did, while still living in the basement and knowing they haven't improved their financial state whatsoever. My dad had his own company and someone told him it made financial sense that instead of paying himself wages, he should take out a loan from his company. He built up debt for 3 years, while working full-time, rather than paying himself. It had all sorts of bad tax effects. Like he was required to pay interest on this, which was then taxed as profit of the company, then he paid himself again paying income taxes. It took him about 10 years to get out of that hole. My dad worked for the UN and built up quite a good pension while he worked there. A good $400K. He left the UN in his mid to late 50s. Instead of looking for new work after leaving, he decided to move back to Venezuela, his home country, and just relax for a while. During this sabbatical, his wife and her family talked my dad into putting almost his whole pension into a single stock with her stockbroker nephew. The stock was Venezuelan oil stocks. My dad did the thing and at first it was okay. But then it wasn't. Predictably, the nephew lost my dad's entire nest egg. The nephew ended up ghosting my dad and his wife. At this point, my dad tried to find new work, but because he was so close to retirement age he couldn't find anything decent. So my dad, a PhD graduate who worked at a decently high level at the UN, ended up having to clean houses for money. When my grandmother's second husband, who I know as my grandpa, died, she spent nearly all $50,000 of his life insurance money on a South African scammer who promised her romance and more money than she gave. She refused to listen to family telling her to stop. She subverted efforts by her own bank to stop her frequent questionable money transfers. Eventually my parents had to close her bank account to force her to stop blowing my grandfather's money. I will never not resent her ignorance, selfishness. I work at a casino, so I constantly see the pathetic depths people will sink to. Especially the high rollers who will just casually lose 10K in 15 minutes. It's insane to me. But they can at least, probably, afford it. It's the average income people who will continue to empty their bank accounts in hopes of digging themselves out of a deep hole. Or the ones who don't know when to stop and lose everything they just won. I used to be a car sales guy, and I watched as someone traded in their 6-month-old $95,000 pickup truck for $70,000 just to buy the exact same $95,000 truck. Literally, it was the same truck. The only difference was that the new truck had a gun safe. I told the guy we could install a gun safe for $2,000. It would have been the exact same gun safe in the exact same place. Guy added an additional $20,000 in debt for a gun safe. But hey, I got to make a $95,000 sale. My aunt dropped $1,000 on those Trump NFTs. Then tried to borrow money from me. Some people are just dumb. That's the only explanation I have.